Desmond Purnell and the Kansas State defense really did step up on Saturday.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We're bringing you Wildcat coverage like no one else every single day. On today's episode, we're going to dive into women's basketball. Jeff Mittie spoke with the media. We're going to dive into that for the first time, really this entire offseason. We got some men's basketball to discuss as well with the schedules and TV times coming out. And of course, we're going to get into some defense and offensive stats and going into the advanced data as we always do every week in the middle of the week. Even though it's a bye week, we're still touching that. So a little bit of a mixed bag episode. We're going to dive into all of that today. I want to start today's program with somebody who deserves the credit, and that's Desmond Purnell. He might have not had always the best games earlier in the season. We've kind of looked at the linebacking crew this offseason. We've said this is could easily be the best linebacking crew in the Big 12 if they step up, and that always wasn't the case. But against TCU, that absolutely was. And Desmond Purnell led the charge, 2 interceptions, one of them going for a pick 6. Those are his 2 first interceptions of his collegiate career, and he really stepped up against the Horned Frogs and really one of the biggest reasons why Kansas State could win that football game. There's a lot of really exciting things to like about Desmond Purnell's game. There's a lot of really good things to like about the defense in general against TCU. And what we saw, what adjustments that Klieman spoke about after the game during his post game, you could tell that they are starting to hum on all cylinders. Is it finally enough? Is it finally going to be enough to get them to potentially finish off the season on a winning streak, going to 8-4, potentially finding themselves to Arlington with a few tiebreakers falling in their direction? Well, that will be up to debate, and obviously we won't find that out until the very end of the season. But the only way they can continue to keep their own destiny in their hands is to just keep winning. I think they do that if this defense, including leading the charge from Desmond Purnell, can continue that. And I want to dig into that on today's episode. I want to talk about the defensive grades that we saw. Desmond Purnell was the Big 12 defensive player of the week, and rightfully so. As we mentioned, 2 interceptions, 1 went back for a touchdown. He played 52 total snaps on the defensive side out of the 71 that Kansas State played. Had a 75.8 defensive grade, 81.2 coverage grade, pass rush at 71.9. He wasn't very good on the tackling. He did have 2 missed tackles according to PFF. That is something that still is something yet to be desired on this linebacking crew. Multiple missed tackles happening on the linebacking crew in this one. But overall, Desmond Purnell came in with some really good PFF scores. The cool part about it, although he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week, he was the second best overall PFF score on the Kansas State Wildcats. Only coming in at 19 snaps here, but with an 80 overall grade, Rex Van Wyhe had the best defensive grades for Kansas State in this one. 80 overall, 80.1 tackling, 74.1 on the coverage. He had 3 tackles, no missed tackles. Might I add you on that one? So I was just kind of talking about the linebacking crew missing tackles. Well, Van Wyhe made that not a full thing across the board. He kind of saved the graphic, if you will. So really enjoy what we saw from him. I'm not going to go top 5 this one. Actually, let's do that. VJ Payne finished in third, 75.7. Jordan Allen, I want to get to him in just a second, was 4th on 75.1, and Donovan McIntosh 5th at 75.0 overall grades. Jordan Allen is the next guy I want to discuss here. What a breakout performance from Jordan Allen when you really needed him to step up. With Toby not being able to get into the game because of injuries, and the broadcast crew, actually, I don't know if you heard this, but Joe Klanderman said that he's going to be out for a few weeks. He spoke with that in the coordinators last week. However, the broadcast crew, unless they got some new extra information, maybe when they were preparing for the season or they just misspoke, said that he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So something to keep in mind moving forward on that one. But Jordan Allen truly stepped up. In his 37 snaps, again, was the 4th best defensive grade with a 75.1 coverage grade, 77.5 on that one. And his pass rush was only 63, but I really liked what I saw from him. There was multiple times where he was making impactful plays at the line of scrimmage. He even batted a ball down. Really like what you saw from Jordan Allen in this contest. Overall, I really enjoyed what I saw from the defense. When you're looking at a mixed bag here of linebackers, safeties, defensive front players being at the top of your PFF grades, to me that shows overall an all-around good, a really good performance from the entire defense. Now there are some concerns. There are definitely some concerns. Austin Romaine finds himself towards the bottom yet again. Only played in 45 of the 71 snaps in this football game. Had 2 missed tackles. PFF gave the Kansas State Wildcats 6 missed tackles on the game. 4 of them came between Purnell and Romaine. So that's that linebacking core kind of stepping up. The other 2 went from Daniel Cobbs with 1 and Wesley Fair with 1. Speaking of Wesley Fair, didn't have a great game. Wesley Fair did not have a great game. His tackling grade was really bad, had a coverage grade super low. And this is really the second week in a row, maybe even third, if you want to consider that, of not having the greatest game. Now, Wesley Fair did have a pick 6. I want to put that in perspective. Other than that pick 6, it would really make you wonder how low these grades would be. But he had the second lowest grades on all of PFF for the entire thing. The only one that was behind him was Amarian Fortenberry, but only played 5 snaps in that one. Wesley Fair played 17 of the 71 snaps. One of them was a pick 6 and still was super low in the grade. So a concerning portion of that is still pointed towards the secondary. Hopefully that can continue and get better as they prepare for Lawrence in 2 weeks' time. I do think the secondary is probably the biggest concern that you have to focus on this bye week for the defensive side. I think even though you have injuries on defensive front, I think they've proved that they can handle those injuries. I think although we've worried about the missed tackling on the linebacking crew, I think they've done a good job in coverage. And I think that you obviously can work on tackling in a 2 weeks' time. Now, will that be fixed in 2 weeks' time? That's a big question. But overall, I don't know if that's your biggest concern at the moment. Your biggest concern is being able to stop the pass. Can you slow down Jalen Daniels? Texas Tech comes up the next week. Your secondary has to be ready for this back end of the schedule if you want to run the table and potentially find yourself at 8-4 when the season's all over. And of course, if you want to just go by week basis, just keeping the streak against Kansas in Lawrence is absolutely huge, especially when a season is a down season like you're having right now. You got to find the small victories, and that one is huge. You didn't win against Iowa State. You didn't win against your first rival. You can't lose against both rivals in the same season. That just wouldn't be good whatsoever. To round up this segment here, I know we went a little long on defense, but we'll just talk real quickly about the offense. Nothing too impressive to talk about the offense here other than the tight ends. Will Swanson and Garrett Oakley led the charge with the top 2 offensive grades, 82.5 and 79.1 respectively. That is where they live. That is the identity that Kansas State needs to continue moving forward the rest of the season. The tight ends, Avery Johnson, they work in tandem. You get in the red zone, you focus on the tight ends. It works. It worked last year. It's working this year. We even saw Garrett Oakley get a 30-plus yard touchdown this past week, so even outside the red zone. But when you get into that opponent's territory and you get even deeper into the red zone portion, the tight ends have to come to life. And that's exactly what we saw in this one. Will Swanson played 27 snaps and Garrett Oakley played 43 out of the 73 offensive snaps that we saw in this one. Rounding out the top 5, Sam Heck steps up and gets the third with a 66.4, Avery Johnson in 4th with a 65.9, and Andrew Lingang in number 5 with a 65.7. I'll say this about the offensive line, as we've mentioned, Heck and Lingang, Gus Hawkins and Terrence Enos and Amos Talele and Devin Vass and Taylor Potier, all filling out the rest of the top 9 there on overall offensive grades. Just kept reading them until I stopped seeing an offensive lineman. But when you look at the pass blocking grades, the pass blocking has been incredible. And that has never been a concern all season long when it has become the Kansas State. They have done an excellent job on pass blocking. Andrew Lingang, Amos Talele, Gus Hawkins all had 80 or more grades on the pass blocking side, according to PFF. The interesting thing that has always just been the thing that has been a concern all season long has been the run blocking, but we are starting to see some improvements on that side. Nothing too egregious, like we have seen some 20s and 30s from some of the offensive linemen over the past couple weeks. We don't see that at all. We really kind of see it's more of a balanced approach here, anywhere between 54 and 61. Nothing too crazy, saying they're stepping up and doing a really good job, but the offensive line isn't blowing it when it comes to the running game. I don't know if that has anything to do with the new scheme, with the fact of just Joe Jackson doing a better job at his performance. Not really sure. I'd have to look back at the tape and focus just on the running things. Maybe we'll do that. We have a lot of time since there's not a game until the following Saturday in Lawrence. But overall, I am, dare I say, a little bit more impressed with this offensive line, but I do still want to see more. I think you got to bully Kansas. You got to find a way to bully them. And whether that's with Dylan Edwards in the backfield or Joe Jackson in the backfield, that offensive line needs to step up. And I want to see a lot more from them moving forward. So if I had to pick two things, just as we're speaking right now, what to focus on in the bye weeks, one on offense, one on defense, that run block has to continue. You got to continue to play bully ball, and they need to focus on that in the practice during the bye. And then your secondary, your coverage grades being a lot more sticky. You got to find ways to do that. So that's my thought process. Let me know what you think about the offense of Kansas State and the defense of Kansas State heading into the bye, because we got a lot more to discuss heading forward for Kansas State football. But let's switch gears for a minute. Let's do a little mixed bag on this episode, and let's talk the men's basketball team. We got some schedules, we got some TV times, and of course, we got some votes for the AP poll for Kansas State and Jerome Tang. We'll talk about that next, right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, today's episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. With the all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence throughout almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode of Locked On Kansas State is also brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Trainer Thread Plus. Powered by Peloton IQ, it's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance in endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built through breakthroughs with tools to help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Thread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Next, let's dive into some men's basketball. Jerome Tang and his crew are getting ready to get into action. Next Friday, we get a exhibition game against Missouri. That game will be on SEC Network. And when you're looking at the rest of the schedule, you're going to have a lot of streaming services to watch all the games if you want to watch every single Kansas State Wildcats game this season. And that's no joke. The Wildcats will play 5 basketball games on Peacock, the streaming service this year. You're also going to need the ESPN Plus package, basically, with a service provider, because you're going to need ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Plus, ESPNU. You're also going to need CBS and CBS Sports Network, and Fox Sports 1, Fox, your local channels, and of course, as we mentioned, the SEC Network, just to watch every single Kansas State game. So just to put that in perspective, that's almost 10, 11 different networks that you got to watch all of Kansas State. So if you're ready to do that, absolutely. And the schedules and times have came out for these ones. You start off with a on the road in Missouri exhibition game October 24th. That one's going to be at 9 p.m. Central Time. And again, you can find that one on SEC Network. We will, of course, have a reaction show to that one. Anything that's televised, we will be doing a reaction show right after. And it looks like every single game is televised. So if you miss a game, if you don't have a streaming service and you need a reaction, you can come on back to Locked On Kansas State to get that right after the game. The way that they're starting off this season, as we mentioned, exhibition at Missouri, and then they'll have one at home against Newman. And then the season will start November 4th at home, 7 o'clock Central Time, ESPN Plus, UNC Greensboro. And then you will have one on November 8th at home against Bellarmine, again on ESPN Plus. This is going to be a very interesting schedule. I really do think it's going to be a good one. I like where their heads are at. They got some votes for the Associated Press poll. I think that might have been a mistake. I'm not even going to lie to you. I'll get to what I mean for that in just a minute. And that's no disrespect to this team. I think this team actually has talent, but I think it might actually have been a mistake. But looking at some of these schedule things, just one more time, one brief look, when you're looking at these non-conference games, Fox Sports 1 is the game November 25th at Indiana. Really looking forward to that game. The game against Creighton will be on Fox. That's a national televised game, December 13th, 2 p.m. Central Time. So some of the big non-conference games are going to be on some of those, I guess you could say, more nationally covered television. So just to put it in perspective, this is not a sponsor or anything, but I have Hulu plus ESPN Plus, and then I get all of these with the exception of Peacock. So if you're looking for probably your easiest bet, you could probably go that route. But if you have an easier way, you can drop in the comment description below, as long as it's a legal way, and help out some of your fellow Kansas State Wildcat fans. Of course, Valentine's Day at Houston, that's going to be a close game. That's going to be a really tough game to see what kind of team Kansas State is towards the end of the season. That one's going to be on Peacock. And then the two matchups against Kansas, January 24th, will be on Fox. That one's the one that's at home. And then to finish the season in Lawrence will be March 7th on CBS. So you're getting Kansas State in Kansas on national television. You're getting at Houston on Peacock. And then on national television as well, your only matchup against Iowa State. So some of the big matchups you're getting at least on national television. If you don't have the streaming services and you have just the local channels, you'll at least get those. But overall, if you want to watch all these games, you're going to have to go somewhere else. Like, for example, your Big 12 opener against BYU, January 3rd, 12:30 Central Time, will also be on national television on CBS. I kind of joked about it, but Kansas State did receive some votes for the AP poll. They received 13 points for the AP top 25. That actually made them 31st in the country. If you want to count the rankings, how that works below that, that's really unofficial. But if that's how you want to play the game, that's what I've always liked to do since I was a kid. But I think that might have been a mistake, and maybe I'm just joking around, but Michigan State reporter Connor Eargood was the only one that actually ranked Kansas State, and he ranked them 13th. Now, maybe it was a joke. Maybe he mistaked Kansas State for Kansas. But honestly, I don't think Kansas State needs to have AP votes right now. They've missed the tournament 2 years in a row. Yes, they have brought in some really fun talent this year, but I don't think they deserve any preseason hype yet. I don't. And I think this team has what it takes to get back to the tournament. I absolutely do. But I don't think that if I had a vote, I would not put Kansas State in the top 25. I wouldn't do it because I don't think you need that type of hype, for one. And if I'm a preseason AP voter, I'm not looking at what they brought in as the only thing I'm paying attention to. I'm looking at past performances. I'm looking at the coaching. I'm looking at what we have seen over the past couple of years. And so far, Jerome Tang hasn't moved that needle for me since he's made that Elite Eight run a few years ago. So I don't think I would have gave them the votes, but we have one voter that decided otherwise. So shout out to Michigan State reporter Connor Eargood. Maybe that will make you want to root for Tom Izzo and Michigan State if they're not taking part of playing Kansas State anytime this season, and that would be in the tournament if that would be to happen. So shout out on that one. We also got some word on who will be the people who will be at Media Days coming up next week for basketball Media Days. Big 12 Media Days is coming up very soon, and it will be Abdi Bashir Jr., of course, PJ Haggerty, and Moby. Moby will be there. So really fun stuff to hear from them. We're going to start breaking down all the players on episodes during this bye week, and then we'll have them dropping as afternoon episodes during game week as well. We got a huge week for you next week, as of course the Sunflower Showdown. We got basketball starting up, Media Days around the corner. Next week is going to be huge, folks. Be sure you are turned in, hit that subscribe button, everything you name it. But exciting stuff for the basketball team, because we are finally right around the corner from them actually playing real basketball. Next week, we get an exhibition game, and then just in a few weeks' time, real basketball that actually counts in the records. And speaking of that, not only is the men's team in action, so is the women's. Jeff Mittie finally spoke to the media for the first time on Monday. Let's hear what he had to say right here next on Locked On Kansas State. But first, the holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can be a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh, or the guest room could use new bedding. Well, Wayfair has everything you need to get the holiday home ready, from Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, and your outdoor inflatables. It's a one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge deliveries. I recently ordered some new holiday decor from Wayfair. It's going to be here soon. Maybe you'll see it in the background very soon. The wreaths, the throw pillows instantly made my space feel more warm and festive. And you can do that as well with Wayfair. So get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. This episode of Locked On Kansas State is also brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. That's right, over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. The Part Finder tool and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. So join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support lines. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's right, supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Is this going to be a rebuild year for the women's basketball team? Well, that's what many people think after making the Sweet 16 last year. Kind of everything just flipped on its head. With only a few returners from the entire roster, it's going to be a different type of team for Jeff Mittie, a young team, but one that's going to be exciting. The key takeaways I took from Jeff Mittie, he spoke to the media on Monday. We're going to dive into that. Of course, there's some upsetting news, and I think that's probably what we need to get to right away. And then there's other things about the potential of this team moving forward. First, I want to talk about the most unfortunate news that we saw here. We're getting a waiver battle that's going with Kennedy Taylor. It sounds like the eligibility request was denied 2 weeks ago. They are trying to appeal it, but it looks like we are not going to get Kennedy Taylor in a Kansas State uniform. Her case would have to be approved 95. Her case would have been approved 95% of the time in the past, according to Jeff Mittie. In this one, he's definitely frustrated. He made sure that was really well known that he wanted this to be solved a lot sooner, and he wants answers before the season begins on the appeal process. But it sucks that we're not getting Kennedy Taylor, because the front court is definitely something that has been thin, and Jeff Mittie brought that up in his talkaways. But first, let's get key takeaways here. Doesn't embrace the whole mystery team, because that was the first question they asked him was, are you the mystery team in the Big 12? He says that it fits, but he's not going to embrace it. He said there's a major roster turnover after, of course, graduations, transfers. Serena Sundell, Yoka Lee no longer on the team. It's going to be a weird couple of games at first to watch this team without those type of players, but they're going to be able to focus on development and improvement from October to March. Inconsistency probably is expected, but effort remains high. One of the quotes here, they said that they've got up more shots than any team we've had. So interesting stuff on that one. We'll get to that in just a minute. So you're building chemistry, your youth meets opportunity, and that's exactly what you have to pay attention to early in Kansas State's women's basketball season to start off the season. 2 international players. You're getting Gina from Spain, Gina Garcia. You're also getting Nadja Klassens, who is coming over from Belgium, adjusting after their late arrival in August. Both bring championship-level experience, but are still adapting to the college lifestyle and, of course, the physical demands of college basketball. But Mittie said he sees flashes of excellence, but says consistency is going to take time. So it sounds like the rebuilding thing might be true, but it sounds like patience is more important. If you're a fan of the women's basketball team, you're going to have patience. Doesn't mean this team is going to be a bad team, but maybe they have a slow start. But that still doesn't change the fact that they could still run the table and have a good Big 12 year. We'll see how it goes in non-conference. The leadership will, of course, be in transition as well with Noah Yoka-Lee and Serena Sundell. Taryn Sides, I think you immediately would think would be that next one to step up. And Jeff Mittie did kind of agree with that quiet, steady leader who's understanded the program standards, really stepped up there. Tess Heel has been a vocal presence. She's brought in from Stanford to help raise the team's toughness and accountability. And I think she has turned into a leader as well. And then we're seeing Parks do the same thing. Michaela Parks, another veteran who's been there, a returning leader, helped to communicate the expectations to newcomers. And that's exactly what you need. There's not many returning players, Parks and Sides really being the only ones. So having them back, that's pretty impressive. There was a quote there that says, not many players that can go and ask, is this guy's nuts? Well, Taryn's the only one that can answer that. And that's what Jeff Mittie said. So it sounds like they're having a lot of fun, and it sounds like they are trying to get some good chemistry and building that together. But patience seems to be the real important side. And then, of course, depth challenges and things like that. Azila Arenas, the daughter of Gilbert Arenas, the NBA player, was apparently going to be at media days. That Jeff Mittie chose her to be one of the players going to media days. So something there. Praised her scoring ability, her quickness, her elite work ethic. So something there. And that's where that quote I talked about earlier what was about Arenas. He said that there's more shots in a week than any player I've ever had. So she's not afraid to throw up the shot. She's not afraid to work hard, and kind of referenced her to some of the past good players that Jeff Mittie has coached at Kansas State. So maybe we're seeing a star in the making with Arenas. Of course, you have some really good, talented freshmen. Jordan Spicer leading the charge on that one, a promising freshman shooter, streaky performances early on in practices, according to Jeff Mittie. So hopefully they can find her to step up. I expect her to get a lot of minutes early in the season. And of course, you got the program veterans to help guide those young players, as I mentioned. The depth at the 5, and that's kind of what I was getting to when I was mumbling my words earlier about Kennedy Taylor getting her waiver declined. The depth at the 5 is going to be an issue, and Mittie called it as thin as we've ever been. So that is a huge concern, especially in a tough Big 12 conference when some of the big teams like TCU and Iowa State have a lot of answers at the 5. So I think that that's going to be a big concern. We're starting to see the coaches' polls come in for the women's side. Iowa State, TCU leading the charge. You saw Kansas State somewhere in the middle of the pack, as we mentioned, they're seen as this mystery team. No one really understands what kind of team they will be this season. But preseason tests coming up. You got a close scrimmage against Minnesota. Then you have an exhibition against Tarleton State, which is a first true road test for this new-looking team. And Coach Mittie said he values long bus trips for team bonding and chemistry. That's something they're going to have to really bank into this year. They're going to have to build that chemistry because there's a lot of young players on this team. Maybe this is a team that you just get into the tournament, maybe make a splash, but overall you're banking and building up for a huge championship run 1 year later and just kind of working on building and retention because, of course, the transfer portal always comes to bite every team every season. So you find a way to use those road trips to simulate real game day environments. You emphasize eliminating what's called the unknowns off court before the season starts. So overall, I think you should be excited about the women's basketball team. I certainly am. And I know not many other lockdown shows cover women's basketball as much as they should. When they cover men's and women's, we will do that. If you stuck around with me last year, we covered men's and women's basketball. We're doing that here on Locked On Kansas State, so you can be sure that happens. We'll have reaction shows. We'll talk about them every single game they have, just like on the men's side. But I think what you need to think about now, as you are getting ready to prepare to watch the women's basketball team this season, I think this is the true message to the fans: is patience now could pay off big later. I think that's the biggest takeaway you can take right now from the women's basketball team. Still a tournament caliber team, in my opinion. Absolutely. I think both these teams could get to the big dance, and that would be a fun March for Kansas State. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Locked On Kansas State. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're bringing you Wildcat coverage like no one else every single day. Your team every day. Please like the video. Please subscribe, and we'll see you back here next time, right here on Locked On Kansas State.